My name is Jerry, and this is my story. On September 20th of 1966, I had a real bad headache, and I called my brother, and he called the hospital, and they said to bring me in because it would be a lot faster if he drove me there instead of waiting for an ambulance. So when he drove me to the hospital, they took me immediately into the emergency room and did a spinal tap, and they found blood in my spinal cord, which meant that I'd had a hemorrhage. They said it was a miracle that I even made it to the emergency room, because most people die on the way to the hospital. They said, we can't operate right now because your brain is swollen, and they'll have to wait for the swelling to go down. But they didn't tell me that at that point, my odds were going down minute by minute. They came in and they told me that my chances of coming through the operation was basically nil and next to none. One of the nurses said that I'd never seen anybody that survived that operation. And this was, a registered nurse. The night before the surgery, my sister came in with her pastor and one of about 10 people from the congregation, people I never knew other than my sister, and they prayed for me that night. Later that night, Jesus actually came into the room and said, everything's going to be okay. And so I kind of had a peace about it, but when they prepped me for the operation the next morning, on the operating table, they said that I started hemorrhaging again, and they didn't know if it was going to have any effect on the end of the operation or not. And during the operation, they drilled 3 holes in my head, 2 in the front to work on and 1 in the back to drain. And this later proved to be a real hard point in my life, because I looked like a bowling ball when I come out of the operation. About 8 hours later, the operation was over. The doctor had told the family that they had no idea what my chances were of getting to be back to normal, because this was a serious operation. My odds of coming out of it successfully was down to about 3%. And there was no chance. I was going to be a vegetable. But after I come out of the recovery room, one of the doctors said, "Say hello to your wife." And I was so drugged up, I just said, "Hello, wife." And that kind of broke all the ice in the room. Everybody, knew that everything was going to be okay, or thought everything was going to be okay. They put me back in the room, and I was a total of 59 days in the hospital before I could return to work. And when I got back to work, everybody there called me baseball head because I had 59 stitches across the top of my head. It was hard to live, because the hair wouldn't grow back over the scars, and it was pathetic looking is what it was. Before the surgery, I told God that I would serve Him and do whatever He wanted me to do, and I would do anything if He would bring me through this surgery. Well, He brought me through it, but I didn't hold up my end of the bargain. I kind of, after having all the hospital drugs, and I went down that road to drugs and drinking, and I became a real mess, until one night in February of 1973, my wife said, "Let's go to a home meeting." And at the home meeting, I said, I'll go, but if I want a cigarette, I'm going to sit there and I'm going to smoke. So we went in and everything. About 30 minutes later, I asked the hostess for an ashtray, and she looked around, come back out with a jar lid, and she handed it to me, and I thought, what kind of a place is this that they don't have an ashtray in their house? And I smoked that cigarette, and when I was done with it, I put it out in the jar lid and handed it back to her, and well, it turned out that was the last cigarette I ever smoked. We both received the baptism of the Holy Spirit, and He took it away. There was desire there, yes, but it wasn't so much that I couldn't overcome it. And during that summer, my wife Suzanne and I went to a church that had a campground, and at this church, It was a deliverance ministry, and we ended up spending 8 years at the deliverance ministry, living on the grounds with the phone calls and all the stuff in the middle of the night. I became an elder there, and I started doing what I told God I was going to do in the beginning. Back to church in our city, we went to Faith Life Worship Center, and the teaching there is just great. We found a depth that led me into deeper walk with the Lord. At the time I was asked to do the story, at first I said, no, there's no way I'm going to do it, and I turned it down. But then God started dealing with me on it, and I thought, there's somebody out there that needs to hear this, so I'm going to do my story, and this is it. This is my story. And I have no idea what the future brings, but I am looking forward to it. September 20th marked the 55th year of the anniversary of my aneurysm. So far, all I can do is thank God for the long life that He's given me. It could have been snuffed out 55 years ago.